So there's a lot of videos out there that are meant for a male viewer, that are intended for the sort of male growth or the masculine identity or that sort of self-improvement for a man or their relationship or something in that space. You know, colloquially, we call this the manosphere.
Yeah.
And it comes in a lot of different forms. This advice for men, for relationships, for personal growth, for something. And a lot of it is pretty pervasive. A lot of it is pretty negative, quite anti-feminist. And other stuff is just sort of very confusing, or I think in general just loses the plot of actually helping men actually have a better life or a better relationship. The other day, she and I were just online on Chinese media, and we came across this guy. Yeah, he's not Chinese, but his video was put on Chinese social media. His name is Orion Taraban, and he is a PhD, but he has some very interesting things to say. And I think as we get into this, in the most charitable way, I would say that he is confusing certain small elements with extremely large conservative misogynistic ideas from the past. But I think a lot of his message is just definitely a sort of manosphere Tate-like message, not delivered like someone like the Tate brothers. But this guy kind of has some really strange ideas, and I want to work through this video and parse out some of the nice basic sentiment that I think is in there with relationship advice and self-improvement advice and sort of self-empowerment advice for men, but it is entangled with this misogynistic and anti-feminist sort of like power and ego trip that just sounds so old world. And some of it is pretty bizarre. Some of it is pretty ridiculous that he would say. And I think it just harkens back. Something it reminds me of is the old book. There were these books that was, it was called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Oh.
The basic premise was that like men and women are aliens and they can't see eye to eye. They're just different. They don't understand each other. They're from different planets.
Wow.
They don't speak the same language. Like men, you're never going to get women. Women, you're never going to get men. Like understand each other.
That's weird. It's like there's a war between men and women. They're
It's
like
so-
very competitive.
Something like that. But the idea that like there's no way we can ever communicate and understand each other. We're just so confusing. So this old book is something from like my dad's generation. And I think there's a reason that book fell into its place during that time, because during that time, men and women didn't go to school as much as they do now. They didn't also coexist in workplaces as much as they do now, or in social events and practices. Back then in my dad's time and prior to that, men and women were much more cordoned off into sort of like these are women or female hobbies. These are male hobbies.
Yeah.
And
it's like two different words, two different categories.
Yeah. And so there was this assumption that like, oh, men and women are just totally different animals. They're like aliens. But now you show that book to any young generation person and they'll just think the premise is ridiculous, because they'll know like, dude, I go to school, I go to college, I go to climbing club, I go to cycling club, I go to chess club, I go to whatever. I go play Magic the Gathering with boys and girls. We're all basically the same. We have some niches. There's so many similarities that they wouldn't understand this idea that like men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And some of what this guy is saying, I think, harkens back to those kind of sentiments about men and women in relationships. And I think some of what he's saying is just so entangled with like anti-feminism and misogyny and just this classic male power ego need that's very childish and adolescent. So is there anything you want to say before we get into the film, just in general, how this like resonates in China?
I just watched some show like 10 years ago, which was very popular. It's about how women just attract men. You know, there's a woman, she's a main character in that show, and she, in that time, and lots of netizens think she's like super cool, and she's very bold to teach how women just to seduce some rich guys, or but also teach women how to like attract people and have their own charms and just don't be shy, something like that.
Yeah.
And she also mentioned the book you mentioned just now.
Oh.
But I thought that book, at that time, I thought that book just means, men and women, they have different thoughts and they have different minds, and the women gotta figure out what men are thinking about. Then women can. It's just like you can beat your enemies after you know your enemies' hobbies and know their habits too. So I think that's very interesting in that age, just teaching these tips. And this show we watched, this video, it's about how men just beat down women, something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I just think it's like men and women's fighting. It's like there's a trick. There's some tips and tricks to make men and women just have a very underlying battles, something like that.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that it's like this battle, because so much of what he discusses kind of in the second half of this video, I think it was, is very combative. He always presents like what you do for her or for him is like this fight and you're trying to win. And it just seems antithetical to having a happy, wholesome relationship. And that's one of the things that I find is confusing. And then another element of his message, I think, is just downright misogynistic and sexist. And then I think the last bit is he has some small advice, but he's getting it good advice, but he's getting it tangled with that other stuff and thinks it's part of it together. But so without further ado, we just want to get into this video. We'll pause it and break down some of the things he says.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
So I'm going to be talking today specifically to the men in the audience. Gentlemen, I'm going to help you prevent your relationships from going off the rails.
So this is, I think, where he's speaking to this manosphere.
It's like if you listen to my video, you can just solve the problems of your relationship with your wives and girlfriends.
Buy my book.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, and every relationship is going to be unique to the individuals involved. But if you've been following my work, you know that, in general, I believe that relationships are more successful and sustainable when the man is the captain and the adored, and when the woman is the passenger and the adorer.
So right there, he's setting up, like an inequality of power, but he's also setting up an inequality of perspective. So like the adored, you think, you look up to, it's not only a power in command, but he's saying like women should just be looking up to men. Like you should just think that our words are gold.
Yeah. I think that happens in lots of relationships. And even some of my friends, they have some problems in their relationships. They will ask others advice, and other friends will tell them, oh, you gotta be you gotta just have the dominant power. It's like one of the side has to have control the power, something like that.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with these terms, then you should read my book, The Value of Others.
He's recommending.
Buy my book
in extensive detail.
Okay.
And I believe this because when the man is in this position, he maintains frame. Frame, in this context, is authority vested with power to dictate the terms and structure of the relationship.
So that term frame is very important. And I think throughout the video, I enjoy some of the way he uses this term when he's talking about some of those small pieces of actual good advice. And I think in those situations, calling it frame is useful. But
frame is like a structure, huh?
Yeah, but I think the way he's talking about it in other senses that we'll break down as we get to it, he's talking about frame just to mean an inequality or an imbalance of decision-making and power and authority, which I don't think is anything to do with structure and frame. It's just one person submitting to the other. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think that's where...
kind of like authority.
Yeah, and I don't think that has anything to do with frame, but he does.
Okay.
How it is arranged, how it unfolds, what it entails, who does what are the privileges and responsibilities of each, etc. When men control the frame, relationships have a much better chance of being mutually satisfying and enduring.
Why?
And regardless
When
of the
women
mixed
cannot control
messages
it.
that they give men these days, the vast majority of women still want a guy that they can look up to be the confident leader that initiates and directs the relationship.
That's
So-
just like a stereotype, I think.
So yeah, there's two things here. One, he's generalizing all men. He's saying men want this, blank statement. All men want this. And that's just not true. Absolutely. The way he presents it is just a matter of fact all. And
Okay.
the second thing about this that he just said is he said that women want a man with leadership. There have been so many numerous polls where they ask women, what are some of the qualities that you like best in a man or that you are looking for in a potential husband and partner, etc.
Yeah.
And they put the option of like leadership, control, authority, they put those things on the list that the women can choose. And even the positive sounding words like leadership, women don't even pick that in like their top 10 choices of like qualities that they want. So this is something that men have been for decades constantly reiterating, saying women want leadership. But then the polls, the actual relationship data shows that women never choose leadership, even in that positive way, in something that they want their man to have. And often when it's traits that women say they don't want, they choose the negative associated words like dominance, control. They choose those they don't want, and they don't choose leadership, which is the positive sounding version of this. So what he's saying here is a generalization about all men, and it is also just revealing that this is just the sort of weak ego man's desire that like, yes, women want leaders. And I don't care what they say. I don't care what the polling says. They must be lying. I know they want me to be a leader.
I think it probably just reflects what you want to be, that kind of man, and he kind of just want to encourage this other man, like to have more sense of control in their relationship, And he thought, women just want me to be more powerful, like a leader of the country, leader of the company. So he just treat the family or the relationship with the women as a big company. He thinks, usually company led by men, then as a man, as a husband or boyfriend, we should be the like the boss, the big boss, and a good CEO. And I think that's not a good metaphor.
I think another thing it does when he's sort of revealing this is what he wants, and he's saying all men are like this, what he's trying to do is avoid self-evaluation. He's saying all men are like this and all men want this. So when he recognizes that he wants this and he likes this, he doesn't ever have to evaluate it, because he will say to himself, well, that's just how guys are. But if he accepts that that's not how all guys are, then he will see, well, wait, how do other guys like it sometimes? How are other guys? What are other guys' perspective on this? And he'll see, other guys often don't care about having this power and having this control and dominance. So I do, they don't. Well, he doesn't ever have to call into question, wait, do I have a view that hurts women? He never has to ask that, because he can just say to himself, it's what all men want. He never has to evaluate and put himself under the lens and say, is my view the view that's hurting women across all the different views of men, because he believes there's only one view. So he's just saying, it doesn't matter if it is putting women down in a lower position, it's just what men want. He's excusing himself by saying, I don't have to judge myself against other men who don't want this.
He's a psychologist.
I know.
He did the survey.
That's the worst part.
He has the data.
However, in about 99% of the relationships that I've personally examined,
anecdotal,
the woman is more powerful than the man, which means that she controls the frame of the relationship.
Okay.
And I think this has to do with why, despite the fact that I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of relationships.
Hundreds and hundreds. Oh my God. Out of the billions of people.
He didn't say billions
in relationships.
And trillions of people.
100,000 relationships.
I think,
multiple pools of thousands. But I studied 100 and hundreds.
I think it's also up to which country. Some country who that has more conservative men, or European countries, or like China or
Yeah.
Asian countries.
Well,
So I just doubt the samples,
yes, exactly. Everything he's saying here is anecdotal, and then he's making a generalization about all men
Yeah.
based off a anecdotal personal experience and an extremely short, narrow sample pool. Hundreds? That's not enough.
I can count the number of relationships that I would consider happy, like relationships that I personally would want to be in, on one hand.
That's his wish.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, these people must not be happy because I wouldn't be happy
I
in that
want to find
relationship.
a woman who's an adorer.
Yeah, but he's basically saying we all have to be the same.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that in every one of those relationships, the man was more powerful than the woman.
Because that's what you want.
So
Maybe
if
it's a
relationships are more
coincidence.
satisfying and enduring when the man retains frame for both the man and the woman, why is it the case that women so often control it? Now, there are two main ways that this occurs.
Two main ways. You gotta
In the
remember
first
it.
case,
I
it
got
happens
taking
right
notes.
from the beginning. The man who may not be a full-fledged captain
You are not a
cedes
full-fledged
control
captain.
of the relationship to the woman as an enticement to enter into a relationship with him. In the book, I call this the sexual strategy of the ferryboat captain.
Variable
This is
captain.
how less attractive men beat out their intrasexual competition. They offer women privileges that their more attractive counterparts wouldn't.
So this is just playing into that classic audience of the men that feel they're not at the peak and the men that feel the progressive women and even the progressive men have betrayed them and left them and made their relationship life and made their dating life worse. And they have to go extra hard because they're a mid guy. There's a lot of parts.
Mid guy.
A mid-level.
Mid-level,
They're not like a top-tier guy.
Like very attractive and
Yeah, they're not
charming.
like
Okay.
they don't see themselves as this. There's all sorts of levels to this in the manosphere, and it's part. And so who he's talking to specifically with this part is he's talking to a certain disadvantaged group that is looking for someone like him to give them this advice to be like, no, that's right, I am supposed to be powerful, and I don't need to give up my frame.
Ultimately, the frustration of not getting more of what they want from more attractive men, in combination with the gratification of getting more of what they want, at least in the short term, from less attractive men, can motivate women to enter into relationships with less attractive men, where they can, more or less, dictate terms from the get-go.
So he's saying if you're an unattractive man, a more attractive woman will go for you because you'll bow down to her and be like, oh, such a hottie, I'll do anything for you. And then she'll be like, I'm going to take advantage of this.
So what's his definition of unattractive man?
He hasn't made that clear. We can make certain guesses or assumptions. But
Yeah.
sure, in general, there are certain qualities that may or may not be as attractive to
Yeah.
people of the opposite
Maybe
sex.
for
or
him, like
people who are interested.
unattractive man means
Not a
he
leader.
cannot tame women and not like the captain of the boat.
In some
Probably
degree,
like
yes.
that.
But I think he also means physically here, just because he's saying the
Physically, okay.
yeah, just because he's saying the more physically attractive women will go for the less physically attractive man because they think they can manipulate it more.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but that also,
Interesting.
but he's also setting up here with that statement that women are these sort of manipulative people that are only looking for things of that nature, and they're looking to only have power over man, which if he believes that man should have power over women, not just equality,
Yeah.
but power over women, of course, any woman trying to reduce that to equality, he sees as the woman having too much power. So
Okay.
of course, all of these examples where he's giving that the relationship is not happy actually could be an equal power relationship, and they
Sure.
could be happy.
Yeah.
But he sees that as a woman having too much power, you know?
Yeah. Very subjective, I think.
Whether they're aware of it or not, these men understand that happy wife, happy life is the cost of doing business.
So it's a cost to make your
Cost?
wife
This
happy.
is not the only
Cost
way
sounds
that
not like
men
a good
come to
word
control the
from
frame
him.
of a relationship. In some cases, the man enters into the relationship as a full-fledged captain, invested with the legitimate authority such a position enjoys by the woman in question. But over time, slowly and insidiously,
Insidiously,
the
yeah.
balance of
Women
power
are
shifts so
insidious.
completely that the man no longer recognizes his own
What?
life. And
But it seems like he thinks men are losing himself
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
if they just compromise in front of their women. I
Yes.
just think that's weird.
Yeah, but it all stems from the fact that he doesn't believe in an equal balance of power. Well, I think that even if the woman has a high position of power of the man, sure, that's
Yeah.
not good either.
Yeah.
Equal power, and both people have to contribute. But he's saying that if the man is not elevated above, then it's wrong. So anything in between where the woman reaches equality, he thinks is wrong. So his entire foundation for this women are manipulating men and trying to get what they want is just unfounded, because women are simply trying to get an equal measure of power. They're not necessarily trying to have power over men, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what he's saying women are trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's saying men lose themselves when they're not the captain instead of equal.
So what should men do?
can't quite remember how things turned out this way.
Can't quite remember.
In point of fact,
Where did
most
I
men
lose my life?
control the frame at the beginning of the courtship process.
I think this part's
and
important.
lose it through small concessions as the relationship progresses.
I don't think
Consider your
so.
first date with your girlfriend or wife. Chances are good that you approached her with a plan. I'd like to take you out. Let's meet at this time, at this place, on this day, and this is what I'd like the two of us to do. And that she agreed to that plan. You created an experience for her to enter into.
Oh, that's the
frame.
frame.
Okay, so here is where I think he is getting a positive concept of confidence and the ability to structure your life and the ability
Yeah.
to
You create a sound structure for you and
for you
the girl you want.
and the girl
Yeah.
you want. You are contributing. This is where I think this concept of frame is worthwhile. But this concept of frame at this level does
Yeah.
not need to be entangled with these concepts of one person is the boss and the employee.
Yeah.
One person is the captain and one
Dominator
person
and
is
the employees.
the idea that a person, and yes, even still today, even in the US and in Europe, which are leaning more female dominated in many ways, still men do usually approach women with the idea, I'd like to take you out. It still is that way. But that doesn't mean that he has a greater sense of power. What it means is that he put forth the effort to create a structure, then yes, like he's saying, invited her into that frame.
Yeah.
That is a nice thing to do. It's a nice thing in our relationship. When you ask me and you don't really want to create your own frame of of what you want to eat for dinner, where you want to go, and you ask me, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to go? And I also don't create a frame, then you're frustrated. You're like, but you don't always want me to just decide everything and have power over you. Sometimes it is nice for someone else to create a frame and invite you into it. It's nice for me to say, well, I'd like to go here and do this tonight. And you're like, yeah, that sounds good. And I organized it, right?
Yeah.
It's not me having power over you, but it is me contributing by offering this frame. So this is where I think his basic concept of frame is useful for a relationship. Like you've been planning part of our Thailand trip.
Yeah,
and that's been great.
Yeah.
And so this is where
that
there's
means I have power.
well, that means that we are both contributing frame to a relationship, and that's good, because this level of frame, if he keeps his definition at concepts like this, is not about a power imbalance.
Yeah.
It's
but
about
he thinks initiating something means you are the winner.
Yes.
And you are dominate everything. You are
Yes.
controlling. So that means you have more power
yes.
over the women. But I think it's wrong.
Yeah, he's
It's just
conflating.
your own willingness.
Yeah, he's conflating this grander idea of power and ego with this simple idea of contribute a plan to invite the other person into, and yes, in this case, you are the one that came up with it, or are the driving force of this plan, but it doesn't mean you have power over them.
Yeah.
That's where he's failing. We'll keep going.
it's very unlikely that you would have been able to secure that opportunity without creating such an experience. And it's even less likely that she went through the trouble of creating an experience for you to enter into. So most relationships begin with the man in charge.
That's not charge. That's just him initiating some small amount of frame to say, I have a plan, let's do this little thing. Doesn't mean charge and dominance, right? And he says, like, it starts out like this, and then you lose that. Well, sure, you don't want to lose that good amount of frame. Like, if I stopped, like, completely, like, asking you out, like, hey, we're gonna go do this and this and this today, you'd be like, how come you never organize dates anymore? Sure, but that doesn't mean you want me to be like, you do what I want.
And just so we say the quiet part out loud, that's why the woman's there.
What?
To be commanded.
Reward
Oh my
men
God.
who use frame to create an experience for them to enter into. They do
Women
not
reward
chase
men.
down men who don't or won't do this.
Is he
This
implying that
important to
women
keep in
can't
mind
create
throughout the
frame for
duration of the
themselves?
relationship,
Yeah.
as men will be tempted to surrender frame in a variety of ways over time.
I just think that's unfair. If it just made me feel like, oh, women just are waiting there, waiting for some men
Yeah.
who have their own frames. So I think it's just made me feel like women are more passive.
That's what he's
That's
implying.
really, yeah.
And I think he's calling back to a conservative time where men controlled sort of all the economic power in a relationship, and women had to marry men for money because women did not have jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is all changing a lot. And this statement here, he says, and men will be tempted to surrender frame over time.
Tempted. I just think that word is so...
He's using that word because he's
it's
saying...
like devaluing women.
Yeah.
I just don't like that word.
It's like he's saying men will give up this power, but this is where he's confusing the two. Because, of course, you don't want to lose that basic sense of frame to contribute an idea and a plan to the relationship, to each other. But now he's mixed it from that good sense of frame to a power and dominance, a leader sense of frame.
This temptation occurs in two primary ways. Sometimes it's the temptation to escape an uncomfortable emotional situation created by the woman in a bid for more power and control.
Give us an
As I
example.
discussed in the Easter egg hunt, these bids typically follow the PSA system of emotional manipulation, or
system.
pity, shame, anger, PSA. No matter the particular thumbscrew, the woman applies emotional pressure on the man, who then cedes frame as a way of buying his way out of a difficult dynamic.
What the fuck?
As I discussed in the book,
sorry.
in its extreme manifestation, this takes the form of an attempted hijacking, in which the woman threatens to leave or divorce if her demands are not met.
But he's basically saying when a woman is threatening to leave and divorce you, it's her wrong, not yours. So if you want to be charitable here, you would say the relationship is not going well. You guys aren't a match. But what he's really saying in the most insidious way from his point of view is when a woman is threatening to leave you or divorce you, whatever she's saying, he's basically saying all of that is emotional manipulation. None of it's true.
Yeah.
You don't need to regard it or contemplate any of these things to make yourself a better man, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's saying that women should not be leaving or divorcing you, and if they're threatening that, it's because they're doing something wrong, not you.
No, I
which is
just
ridiculous.
think he made me feel like the men are very childish. It's like all the pressure is from women. I create the frames for women's pressure. I lose my frames for women's pressures too. It's like all women's fault.
Yeah.
But not like, oh man, we should have our own consciousness and we should know what kind of things are reasonable and unreasonable. So he just made it, he just make women just like a evil thing.
Yeah.
The temptation to surrender frame doesn't always come from the outside. Many, if not most men, seduce themselves into doing so.
Seduce is a
However, this is
pejorative,
only possible if the man
word.
becomes emotionally invested.
He's saying
which
you can't give
induces
up
a
power.
distortion in his thinking, typically by activating his latent romanticism.
What?
This romanticism, in turn, either motivates him to sacrifice more and more of his life for his one and only, or tempts him into the ideal of equal partnership. This might sound surprising, but as I've discussed previously, partnership is the most prevalent male romantic ideal in our culture today.
Yeah. Especially
This might
US
sound
guys.
appealing in the abstract, and many might disagree with their words, but most women don't want to be either pedestalized or partnered.
Why?
Think back to what I said
He's
just a
saying
few
women
moments
want
ago
to
about
be in
the
a low
early stages
position.
of courtship.
Oh my god.
The woman is there because the man created an experience for them to enter into.
This is where he's just taking it to lengths
So
that
it's
he
like
shouldn't.
women are guided by men.
No,
and-
he's saying that women want to be guided by men. He's saying women want to be subservient.
Okay.
That's what he is saying. But he's saying that women want to be subservient because a man asked her out on the date first.
Okay.
So he's saying that because that man has that basic level of good frame of, hey, I'm going to think of a nice date and organized structure to ask her out on, that means she wants to be subservient. And that's where he's just escalated this to a ridiculous level that has no connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's conflicting.
Most likely, the experience did not occur at her convenience, which is what would be necessary if being pedestalized was preferred, nor did
What
it
is
occur as the
being
result
put
of some
on a pedestal?
collaborative process,
Okay.
which
Like
is what would be
worship you.
necessary if partnership were preferred. It occurred because the man invited the woman into an experience that he created.
Yes, that little bit is true, and that's
Yeah.
why organizing a small frame and contributing is nice. But women do it to men back once the relationship has been put together.
Yeah.
He's basically saying that a woman never puts forth the idea of what to do or shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's ridiculous. So I'm saying this repeatedly now, but he's just conflating this small idea of constructing like a date
Because his
to
core value,
having power over
I think
someone.
his core value in this story is like women are the passengers, or
Yeah.
women cannot just steer the whole ship. I just think that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I think he's
Yeah.
also saying that women can't even steer their own ship, and so men have to step in there and do it for them.
Using his power, autonomy, creativity, and resources. Women teach men that this works by responding positively to this structure.
Teach men.
And men
So that would mean that if the woman does it to the man, he's suggesting that the man deny it and say, no,
Okay.
I don't want to go on the date you prepared for me, because that would encourage you to think that I like it when you organize a date for us.
Oh wow!
You know, which
it's
is
like
just
inspired
ridiculous.
by men. Women were inspired by men, right?
Yeah.
So he means
deviate
that.
from what works at their own risk. So how exactly does this happen? I'm going to describe the moment when the man begins to seed frame to the woman so that you can recognize it and respond to it appropriately. I call this moment the beginning of the end.
What?
Because failing to respond appropriately puts the relationship on a slippery slope toward dissolution.
Why?
Or worse, an expensive, unsatisfying marriage.
What?
Sure, if you have an unsatisfying marriage, you guys are not a good partner.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's because, as the man,
Failing to
you started to give her equality. That's what he's saying. The moment you start to give her equality and autonomy,
Yeah.
that's the end, buddy. Now it's over for
Yeah.
you. Which is just such a toxic message for men. This is where it gets into that Andrew Tateism level of like men are there to dominate women. The moment you give any sort of autonomy or power to women, then it's over. Because
Yeah.
women are just there to manipulate you and take everything you've got.
It's like he takes the man as a president. It's like you as a president, you shouldn't give the ordinary people too much freedom, something like that.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. I
This
hate
occurs
that.
when A, the man is sufficiently emotionally invested, and B, the woman, directly or indirectly, wants something from the man that he authentically doesn't want to give.
What?
The request could be big. Let's get married. Let's move in together.
Okay, so are you telling us right now, sir, that your wife manipulates you, steals your resources, tries to organize dates for you, and you hate it? And
Oh my God, so pathetic.
is that what you're telling us? Are you? Is this a call for help?
Let's go antiquing on Sunday. Let's go to brunch with all my couple friends. If the man weren't emotionally invested, this wouldn't be a problem. He would just say no. Because, as I talk about in Women Are a Roll of the Dice, he isn't gambling with more than he can afford to lose.
He's saying that women are a random element, that they're just rolling the dice, which he's basically implying that women cannot navigate their own ship in this captain metaphor that he keeps using. He's saying that women have no control, have no path, have no goals. They're not deciding anything. The women are just this agent of chaos. The dragon of chaos.
That's such a dumb idea.
However, once he crosses a certain point, he comes to believe that he can no longer say no, even though he would like to, because he fears the consequences of doing so.
Oh my God, that's
so in an actual,
so much fair.
Yeah, in an actual equal relationship, there are plenty of times that he would want to say yes, and in an actual equal relationship where they both have power and they both are contributing small frame, then if he really does want to say no, she's not going to have a problem with it. And he should have the confidence to say no when he really doesn't want to. That's true. He should be able to. But this doesn't mean that when you say yes, that it means that you're being manipulated and giving up dominance in the relationship. That's the part he's getting wrong.
But I think he just made the man just so weak, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, lots of men, they are afraid of being rejected. Then just
give
up, yeah. Then men are weak too.
He's basically just playing into the ego fears of these adolescent men. In a relationship, you do need to consider the other person and keep that person happy. If I never did anything with you, of course you wouldn't be happy. So a relationship does require give and take. This is where he's taking things to extremes instead of saying, sure, you do need to give up some to have some give and take in a relationship. You need to be able to say no if you really need to say no for yourself. I can't do that with you. But you should also be willing to say yes, even if it's not your first thing that you want to do, but it's the other person's thing that they really want to do. So couples and relationships, this stuff does take emotional investment and energy, but it doesn't mean that you are giving that up. And that's basically what he's saying, is that a man shouldn't have to contribute any of those things to a woman. You shouldn't ever have to say, yes, I'll go do the paracord making with you, even though I didn't really feel so invested in doing the paracord, but I know you wanted to.
Did you feel like you give up yourself and lose your frames? I think basically. What he said actually just actually applied to both men and women who are losing themselves in the relationship and deal with it in an appropriate way, you know. So, but he just has he's sympathetic to only to men.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not like the women and the men in the weaker positions or, you know, in the bad situations. So I think that's it goes too far.
So that's how the fear lies. Just like the initial stages of courtship, it's generally a much better idea for men to maintain frame over the course of the relationship. This is what I'll do, this is what I won't do, and allowing the woman to either opt in or out as she so chooses.
So some of those are good ideas.
Yeah, this one.
This is where, again, he's conflating this small, basic relationship advice and even just self-management advice, even if you're not in a relationship.
Yeah, this one is like self-management.
With a power structure.
Yeah.
That he believes the men should be the dominant power position. But this is not about power. This is about having your do's and don'ts in a relationship, things you are willing and not willing to do. Those things are okay. It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to need me time.
Yeah.
It's okay to have individual space.
Have your own space.
Yeah, and it's okay to not have to give everything. It's okay to say, I've been giving a little bit more than you've been giving to me, that I've been receiving, and I feel some work needs to be done. All those things are okay that he's saying, but he's taking it again to that next level, and he's just saying, therefore men should always have the dominance and power and direct the woman, and she should be submissive.
Yeah.
Which is such a huge leap that doesn't
double
make
standards.
Yeah, it's just this leap that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually lead to a cohesive and happy relationship either.
Yeah.
You also
Consider
have to deny
a
and
professional
reject yourself
relationship between an
sometimes.
employer
To
and an
manage
employee.
yourself.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine a company
Oh, a
in which the
company is
Yeah.
doing a
employees
metaphor.
were allowed to dictate their own
Yeah, I
compensation
mentioned that at
packages?
the beginning.
Yes, I can. That's called a union, and that's a very normal, progressive idea where workers do get to negotiate and bargain
Yeah.
for their value in the relationship
Yeah.
of employer and employee. But even that is not what a relationship is.
Yeah.
I think he's just hearkening back to that old time where
Right.
the man is the boss with the money,
Yeah.
and he's paying the woman. He's going, okay, take some money every month and go
Yeah.
do your little
Just
crafts.
treat the women as the employees.
So it's better to err on the side of giving too little than too much. In general, the price of getting most of what you want is the willingness to forego getting everything that you want.
Sure, but that is compromise in a
woman
relationship.
who sees you as
You
her best
do have to
option
give
is
and
not
take.
going to leave her when you tell her no. On the other hand, the more you tell her yes, that is, the more you give her what she wants, the more expensive and difficult the relationship will become.
Expensive.
Yeah, he brings this up. Expensive. It's about money. It's about him being the provider. It's about
Yeah.
her being a leech off of his money.
Yeah.
But he's saying the more you give her what you want, what she wants,
Then your relationship will be more expensive.
be more
and
expensive. So
difficult.
in his, this is sort of telling
Why?
of his life that women just sort of want money out of him, which is like, yeah, if you don't have personality, you don't have humor, you're not nice, you're not a good guy, you don't treat women well,
Yeah.
maybe someone did find you because you have money and they just want a stable life, even though you're an a-hole to them. And it's like, okay, maybe that's your life, man. But that's
Yeah.
not how so many other men's lives operate.
Catering to her desires, usually due to emotional overinvestment, increasingly
Overinvestment,
transfers
wow.
control of
Again,
the
you
frame to
shouldn't
the
be
woman,
emotional. You
which
shouldn't
often
actually be
signals the
emotionally
beginning of the
invested
end
in women.
of the relationship.
Why women control the
However,
frame
this can
means
be
the relationships
prevented
end.
by
Yeah.
recognizing and tolerating your own fear and choosing not to surrender to its behavioral impulses. What do you think? Let
I
me know
think
in the
it's
comments below.
bullshit.
And please, guys,
say bullshit?
The dragon of chaos. I feel a lot of what this guy is saying is just coming from that extremely toxic point of view that you see so often in the manosphere. And then other parts of it are just so confusing. It's kind of funny. It's like, what relationships do you have in your life, dude?
Yeah.
And like, how jaded are you to think so negatively of women and of men, that other men couldn't possibly have happy, cohesive relationships with women where they don't have these ego problems like little adolescent boys. It's like he believes that couldn't possibly exist, so he doesn't want to see how sad his life is. He doesn't want to compare himself to others because he doesn't ever want to put himself under that microscope and say, I need to be a better person. I need to be a better man, a better husband.
Yeah, yeah.
But he also doesn't want to compare himself to other men because then he'll see, wait, other men are happy with their wife?
Mm-hmm.
Other men enjoy doing things with their wife? Other men actually like women? Oh, wow. My relationship's shit. I hate
Yeah.
my life. Then he'd
Yeah.
actually realize that. So some part of it's kind of funny. Other parts of it are just that toxic bullshit. And then, like I said at the beginning, there's those small bits of this basic understanding of frame and organization and structure that you can put forth into a relationship. But that doesn't deserve that leap to the men should have the position of dominance and leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
And women should be submissive. And women are manipulative and you can't give in. message that he goes to. It's way too far.
Yeah, I just think he thinks the power is very important in the relationship.
Yeah.
I think he's too weak because he's afraid of losing the power, losing the control over women.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought he already lost it, and then he want to learn some lesson from it.
He wants to make this video to like show like, no, actually I am powerful. I'm not sad you left me. No, I'm happy you left me. I didn't give up. I didn't surrender the frame to you. I'm happy actually.
Yeah, but I think it's really typical. It happened in life a lot. Like lots of guys, like some Chinese guys, they think, oh, women just have a relationship with them only for money.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, that is the old way that I think this guy is basing so much of his theory on, is this old partnership of, you know, like sex and reproduction and the sort of abstract beauty or ego boosting coming from the woman's side, and then just like structure and leadership and money coming from the male side. And yes, that may have been true. That doesn't mean that's what women wanted back then either. Even if it was true, it's not what women or all men wanted.
Yeah.
This new framework of equality, and this is the part he's missing the most, is that when you can share investment and responsibility and you share frame,
sure,
it's better for both people. Both people are more able to be what they want to be in the relationship. And you both feel you can say yes when you want to say yes, and you can say no when you want to say no. And you can have the relationship you want to have. That's why, like, that's the thing he's missing. And I think he's probably missing that in his life, which is sad. But he's bringing this on himself in his own life.
I think making yourself better and you learn something from your last relationship. Maybe that means you can learn how to find a healthy relationship, find the right one. But not like, oh, I make myself better. I make myself independent and less affected by some negative powers, negative things, then I can just dominate my relationship. Yeah, so I think that's totally wrong. Yeah.
I feel in the manosphere there needs to be opposition voices, and you need to call this stuff out, because I don't know what sort of vulnerable guy watches this and goes, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. And, you know, fuck all the women that want to manipulate me to have equality.
Oh yeah, so. like before I had not like a date. I had a conversation with a U.S. guy. He's from military.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like I used Tinder to talk to that guy.
Yeah.
And that guy just said how much he just hates women. He's like, oh, I hate American women. That's why I want to find an Asian girl. I said, why? He's like, oh, American girls are so greedy. They just want my money. I don't want to take away my money and my property, blah, 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 like that. Then I said, oh, but you can just find happiness. You can find a good woman who has like the similar values with you, and you have the same goals. He's like, no, bullshit. All the American women I met, just so greedy and overly independent and very like their mind is fucked up, and their minds were affected by the feminism value. I was so surprised. I was shocked. I was like, what?
You're like, and you're talking to women? Are you trying to get a date with me?
Yeah.
I mean, if he has...
Very shocked.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy that you were talking to, if he has like these really bad relationships, like, that's too bad, that sucks, and hopefully he can meet better people. But also, it's probably how he's advertising himself and putting himself out there. He's looking for a girl to be dependent on him and follow his orders.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't want a girl that's looking to him to support her with his money. Because there are plenty of women. I have actually never met a woman or a girl. I've never met a girl who was just like, I want you for your money. And so I think it's all about, from a guy's perspective, who you're talking to, how you're advertising yourself on dating apps and, you know, out there in general, that women will see you and go, yeah, that's a rich dickhead. I'm into that or I'm not into that. And so if you don't want to attract women who are just like, yeah, some asshole guy, but at least he's rich, I'll get some money from him, then don't advertise that that's the kind of guy that you are. And don't have that be your best personality quality is you have money. And yeah, the whole anti-feminism stuff, that is extremely common when I was coming here to China, or before I came to China. When I told people at the couple places I worked, so many guys just said so much sick, disgusting stuff to me about, oh yeah, you're gonna meet women in Asia, it's gonna be great, man.
Yeah,
and it's like
so judgmental, and they think Asian women are very willing to be dominated and very obedient.
Yeah, there's a huge group of men who have sort of tried to leave the West, where you have progressivism and equality and feminism and things like that, for this idea of the ideal Asian girl who is still like women, how women should be. Yeah, and that's all part of the manosphere, is the men that talk like that.
It's not the old word, it's a new word.
Some men can't adapt.
Yeah.
Some men cannot adapt.
No. Gross.
Anyway, I think this was important.
Thank you.
So remember, guys, also, if you are watching this guy's video, don't be tricked by these things. Don't think this is the only way to be a man. Don't think this is the only kind of relationship you can have. And if you do have a bad relationship where some of the stuff this guy says is true and you feel manipulated, you feel like you are losing your autonomy, losing who you are, then that might be a bad relationship for you, and do get out. But don't seek power and dominance as a solution to that. Seek another person who wants to be in an equal and wonderful relationship with you, because that is possible. There are women out there who want that.
Or maybe just living in a new environment and find some other people who have the similar values or healthy, who wants to have healthy relationship with you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you find it's hard, you can just find a man too.
Yeah, be gay.